Good morning, everyone, and welcome to D.I.V.E, Diversity, Including Various Ethnicities. We are so happy that you are joining us today. I am Iris Owens, your host, and on the line with me is my beautiful sister and co-host. Good morning, Jessica. How are you?
Good morning. I made it.
Yes, you made it. I'm so happy that you are here and you are back. Well, we're going to jump in today. We have a wonderful, awesome guest on with us today, and we are focusing on the family business. And today it's the family business and entrepreneurship. So we'd like to welcome and join us in welcoming Micah Stampley, who is an amazing realtor, and he is our guest today. And Michael, we are so happy to have you today. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you guys for having me.
Oh, thank you for joining
Welcome,
us.
welcome.
So we're going to go ahead and jump in. So Micah, just disclosure, I met Micah. Oh my God, Micah, several years ago,
Mhm.
um, prior to Micah becoming a realtor, and I always said your spirit, Micah, is just one of those that when someone meets you, you will never forget. They'll never forget that they met you. And I remember when you came into, I met you, encountered you again at a meeting, and I kept saying, where do I know this person from? Like I know him. And then when it came to, I was like, oh my God, the Beignet family. And so I'm not going to steal your thunder. I'm going to let you share with us your family business and entrepreneurship. And so, Micah, I just would really like to know, we'd like to know, like, who influenced you to becoming the entrepreneur and the realtor that you are today?
Mhm.
um, I was raised in a family of entrepreneurs. My parents have owned several businesses. My dad and my mother own a recording company. They also own a food company, and they have several food products that they have in various stores. One of them is Walmart just recently, and the other is on Amazon, and then I think they have a couple of other stores, like grocery stores, retail stores, that their products are going to be in. But one of them currently is Walmart, um, and that idea came from them owning a restaurant, well, two restaurants for about 3 years in
Mm-hmm.
Fayetteville and in Louisiana as well. Um, our family is originally from Louisiana, New Orleans, the New Orleans area. If anyone knows where Slidell is, that's where we're
Stay there
from.
every time.
Yeah. Oh,
That's where I
really?
stay anytime I go to New Orleans.
Yeah. So that's where a lot of my family is from. We're Creole, Louisiana Creole, not
Yes.
Caribbean Creole. And that's just something that is in our blood. So I've always had a passion for food. Everyone in my family, all my parents, siblings, all of them, we have a rich culture in Louisiana. So that kind of prompted them to start a restaurant when I was in high school. And me and my brothers and my sister all worked in the restaurant for years, the years that they had it open. And growing up, my parents were, my entire life, they were self-employed. My dad is a gospel singer.
Mm-hmm.
He traveled all throughout my childhood. My mom managed him and managed the record company. And the food company came after the restaurant some years ago, but they've always raised us to say, do not work for anyone else, make your own living, make your own business, and be your own boss. And that's just kind of something that they instilled in us from children, from the age of when we were really young.
Mm-hmm.
um, I always kind of I never thought to myself that I would go get a job, like go get a regular job, like in the sense where I am working for someone else. I've always been a self motivated person. I was homeschooled from the time I was literally like little kid. I mean, I went to public school probably for about a week in elementary school, and it didn't work for me. So um,
I
we
love
stayed
that.
home up until I was in high school, and I was a self-taught learner. So that always also taught us a lot of independence in the school and schooling, and just work driven, self-independent, motivated work drive. Like that's just how a lot of us are. Most of my siblings, not all of us. um, So that's an environment that I've thrived in since I was young. Um, so that influenced me to step into real estate. Well, for one, since I was like 11, 12 years old, I wanted to be a realtor. I wanted to sell real estate. I wanted to invest in real estate. I found that to be my passion at a young age.
Mhm.
It's funny because I meet a lot of people who do not have that experience when they come into real estate.
Yeah.
But I always wanted to do it since I was young. So my parents definitely had the biggest influence on me and wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Awesome. Awesome.
I'm going to jump in, Iris, because fortunately for you, you had the pleasure of meeting Micah previously, prior to this podcast today.
Yes.
I haven't had the privilege of meeting Micah prior to this. And listening to him talk, I had already said, I was going to ask him, like, do you know you have the same name as this gospel singer?
Yeah.
And as I'm sitting here listening to him, I'm like, it's his son.
Yes.
I felt a little slow, Micah. I'm not even going to lie. Felt a little
Yes.
slow. But it
Yeah.
just came, and I'm like, and I'm sitting here, and I'm looking at him like, man, I almost favors him. And then I'm looking at your email like, Micah Stampley Jr., but could it be? Because
Yeah.
people have similar names.
Yes.
But okay, now I just had a full circle moment. I'm showing my age. I had a full circle moment because I grew up listening to your father.
Wow.
So yeah, now that I got that out of the way, and maybe for some listeners, they probably are having that same full circle moment right now. Yes,
Yes.
his son. Okay, so now you pretty much answered a lot of our questions just
Oh,
right then. So you're gonna kind of we have to kind of pivot a little bit because you pretty much laid the foundation for us for
Yes.
how we can take this conversation.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate that. Because you came ready to talk, and I love that. My question for you that I feel many others may also have is, being that you came or you were brought up in a family that was full of entrepreneurs, full of go-getters. They all had this drive. This is what you saw in your parents and other family members.
Yeah.
Did you at all feel intimidated to step out and do your own thing? Or was the motivation just kind of embedded in you from seeing them?
I think I was always nervous to start a new job, to do something and step from under my parents and do something for myself.
Right.
But I think it's just in my blood. I mean, like, they are go-getters, but they also, like, I'm a person of faith. I believe that I have to have faith in life. And, I was raised to have a lot of faith. So whenever I got into the mindset where, oh no, I can't do this, or I'm scared, they always redirecting me back to, you walk by faith and not by sight. And you have to trust God to provide for you and just follow him. He'll, if this is his will, then it'll work out.
Right.
So I was always open to that side of it, even in the times where I wasn't quite sure. But also, I had a very strong support system. I mean, my family, they are always supporting me. They're always praying for me. They're always, like, lifting me up. And they're not putting me on this big pedestal, but they're always pushing me and telling me that you're not gonna fail. We're not gonna let that happen.
Mhm. I
And
won't let you fall, is what
right,
they're telling you.
Yes.
I won't
that
let you
Yes.
support system is a pivotal. If you're in a negative environment where everyone's looking at you and saying negative things, or they have a negative perception of entrepreneurship, which
Right.
I know people outside of my family, personal relationships though, who don't view entrepreneurship as a good thing, but more as a serious risk that can become detrimental and that not worth taking.
Right.
Mhm.
But I
Right.
always think about the fact that if you're in a traditional job setting, and this is, I mean, either you can't escape this reality. No matter where you work, no matter what you do, you are going to have a risk involved.
Right.
People get laid off, people get fired, people quit their jobs because of the environment being trash, because they don't love it, because they're not thriving in it.
Right.
So I think that just because of the fact that you have an employer and you have a paycheck coming in every week and you know it's coming in every week, that doesn't somehow make that a better alternative. And when you're an entrepreneur, the sky is the limit. You know, you have a cap off and a lot of, different types of jobs.
Right.
But in this job, I can make as little or as much money as I'm capable of making, and no one can stop me. I can be in any company and any brokerage or whatever I decided to do, and no one's my boss. No one's standing over me and telling me I can't or can do X, Y, and Z. The people I work with, the people I meet and I network with, they determine my success after God, of course, because God opens the doors, and so I like the fact that I don't have a limitation over me in my success, and what I bring home and how I can build a future for myself and my family. So I think if that answers the question.
No, that absolutely does. And one of the things that you said, it made me think, because it's either in you or it's not. And I'm a firm believer of that. You either have it in you or you don't. And I remember being told by a previous employer where she explained, she says, people skills can be taught, but leadership skills, you're either born with or you just don't have it. Everybody isn't born to be a leader. And it takes the quality of a leader to be an effective entrepreneur. Therefore, it's not for everybody. So I understand that everybody is not going to be in agreement with entrepreneurship. They like you said, they look at it as a risk, whereas everything has its risk. If you really want to be honest about it, everything has a risk, but they look at entrepreneurship as so much of a risk that they're not willing to take. And I think we as society need to be okay with those who aren't willing to take those risks, because it really comes down to it wasn't meant for them anyway.
Yeah. And I was going to say Jessica. Like, what I love about what you just said is, and I think that people who fixate on the risk are negative people and are bound. They're not solution oriented. Like I always say, I am a solution oriented person. I'm not a problem oriented person.
Right.
Where you have an issue, but I don't fixate on the problem. I figure out how to fix it. Like I can't sit on a problem and just mope around, like, and just sit on that.
Right.
If there's an issue, I have to solve that problem. I have to fix it. And people who see the risk in entrepreneurship fixate on the fact that you don't have an every week paycheck, right? That's the problem that they're fixated on. But they don't look at the fact that the opportunity solves that problem.
Right.
So, the opportunity in the skill-based success is what it resolves the issue.
Right.
But they can't see past the risk.
Right.
But that's an opportunity for us. That's an opportunity for entrepreneurs to take that role and take the success that they're not willing to take, and have.
It almost, Iris, and I'm gonna pose the question to you as well, because you've been in real estate longer than I have. And from the sounds of it, Micah's been in real estate longer than I have.
Well, we go delve into that part.
Right, but what I see and what I have gained from it is those individuals, like you said, they have the negative mindset because they're focused on what could happen negatively, not looking at it from what could happen if this blows up for me.
Yes.
What could happen if I am successful instead? It's almost faith-based. You're stepping out on faith, knowing within your heart, this is for me to do. And I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to give my all. Why give your all to somebody else's dream and not give your all to your own? It comes back to that. Entrepreneurs have a heart of a leader, and they make those necessary steps because of that. And like I said, everybody can't walk in those shoes.
Nope.
Everybody can't walk in those shoes. How long have you been in real estate, Micah?
So I started I got my license on March 28th in 2021.
Oh, I got you beat. Never mind.
So Jessica, I'm glad that you asked that question, because Micah, my next question to you, and really it's while sitting here, I had named this originally the family business entrepreneurship. So I'm
Right.
changing that to the family business DNA, or entrepreneurial DNA, because I want you to share. A couple of weeks ago, we were together and someone asked, you had to introduce yourself and talk about how long you've been, introduce yourself, say how long you've been a realtor.
Right.
But what was your business plan? I want you to
Ooh.
share what your business plan was when you decided to become a realtor.
Yeah. Coming in, I was a deer in headlights, obviously. I came into the heat of the market in 21, right? And coming into that summer when every house had so many offers, you had no shot unless you had all the, as a buyer, and as a new agent, that's all you have is buyers.
Exactly.
So coming in, into the company, that is an amazing company, that drives you to do all the necessary things to build your business, right? Um, and I took those things into action. I did the cold calling, I did the door knocking, I did all of these different things for the first 7, 8 months of my business. Um, and I did not have much success, because it was, but also like I didn't see the success. But then at the end of 21, I sat down and I just prayed and I said, God, I tried everything else that the world told me to do. Um, and it's not working. So coming into this, not having any experience, not having any professional or past, jobs that I can glean from. Um, at this point, I just want you to take care of it. So I told God, my business plan is to seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. And I knew that all the things I needed would be added to me. And I kid you not, come 2022, I mean, I just went from, if you could see production, it went from here to here. And the whole year, I don't even know what happened. I literally woke up every day not knowing where my next lead was coming from, not knowing where my next client was coming from, but I was doing my job to the best of my ability, and I was diligently taking care of each client and trusting God that my needs would be met. And he did exceedingly and abundantly above all that I ever could have asked for or thought. And, my business plan moving forward is just going to be ultimately focused on my relationship with God. Like literally my business plan is to just focus on my relationship with God. Like that's it. And I know that whatever I need, whatever my responsibilities are, they're going to always be met. And that's a walk of faith. Like you said, I literally walk by faith and not by sight.
Right.
And, he takes care of me. My business plan is rooted in that. And, I don't not do things. And I want to be clear, I don't not have systems. But those systems follow what God tells me to do.
Right.
And that's what's, I think, blessed me so far.
And how do you
Most
treat your
definitely.
clients?
Say again.
How do you treat your clients?
Like family. Oh my gosh. Everyone that I've worked with so far, I mean, I've had a couple that were a little more challenging,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I'm always just asking God to give me wisdom, and he gives it, and I tend, I mean, a lot of the times, like after we close, I take them to dinner.
That's
I
nice.
have some people that are like, oh my God, I've had people call me to come to their house and have dinner and hang out, like everybody's like, I treat them like family, and I build friendships. I'm a people person, so it's, I make friends, and I want to build those genuine relationships, even if, I mean, I have people who I didn't even close transactions with that I still call, that I still hang out with, that may not have been qualified. And then those same people have sent me referrals,
Exactly.
so it's like, sometimes it's just the fact that you meet people for a reason and
Mhm.
you treat them like people and not like a
Client.
transaction.
A transaction.
They're
Absolutely.
not
Exactly.
money. I don't see people and I think money signs. I see people who are people, And, you know, whether or not we close a deal, it's still an opportunity to meet somebody and learn about somebody. And then, you know, ultimately, I know that he's going to always take care of me. So,
Right.
you know, I don't have to
Right.
worry about it. So,
And
yeah.
that is so true. I mean, because I feel the same way in reference to my clients. I treat them like family, and it just so happens that I was showing a property yesterday evening. It was a young lady, and she brought her sister with her. This wasn't our first time going to see properties, but her and her sister just kept saying, "We appreciate you taking the time to answer our questions. You don't seem you don't come across as if we're bothering you or nagging you." And I took that as an opportunity to explain to them. I said, listen, I pride myself with working with buyers for one reason only, especially first-time home buyers, because when I was a first-time home buyer, the realtor that helped me, and I need to look and see if he is still active, but his name was Isaac Scott. He was an older gentleman, and he literally took my husband and I under his wing and held our hand through the whole process of purchasing our first home, right? That left such a lasting impression on me that when I started into this business, I wanted to leave the same type of impression on my clients. Because even though I purchased that house 15 years ago, I still remember that agent. I still remember how he treated me. I still remember how I felt through the process, right? So this is one of the biggest things that people do. Purchasing a house is not a small feat. So you don't need to add any more stress to them as their agent. You understand? I am not here to add any more stress to you. I'm going to leave that to the lenders,
Right.
to everybody else.
Right.
As your agent, I'm not here to bring any more stress. So
Right.
I treat them as family, but ultimately I treat them how I was treated as a buyer,
Yeah.
and as someone who actually cares.
Right.
Who actually cares. Like, you are not just a transaction. If I feel that this might be the best fit for you, I might not necessarily vocalize it in the best way possible, depending on the client, because you have to read the room. But I may be one of the people like, you sure? You understand, because I want you to be comfortable in the decision that you're making, and I do not want my clients to have buyer's remorse.
Right.
Because they're not going
relational.
Exactly.
It's
They're not going to
relational.
think about the agent. I mean, the lender. They're not going to
Right.
think about the seller. They're going to think about the agent.
Right.
You're the
Right.
person that
Right.
brought me to this house. So
Right.
You sold me this.
Right.
exactly.
You're the expert. You're supposed to know.
Right.
And if I don't know something, I expect you to inform me, and even if I'm a rough client, I may be a very difficult client.
Yeah.
Not in the sense that I am mean or anything,
No.
but I'm going through a lot trying to make these decisions, right? And I think sometimes as agents, you cannot forget that as you just said, this is the biggest purchase people are making in their lives. These are major decisions. This impacts your whole entire life and your generational wealth and your children's life and everyone behind you and before you, right? And so it's important that you remember that you are dealing with a person's life. You're not just selling a home. You are dealing with a person's
so
life
much more,
and the trajectory of their future and the future of the generations behind them. So it's important. And I always say that real estate is relational, right? And I, like you guys say, when I'm talking to my clients, I always say to them, I would not treat you any way that I would not want someone to treat my mother. Because that's important to me, right?
very much
I'll
so.
fight you over my mother, right?
Come
And if I
on,
think
we
you're
don't play by
treating my
mama.
mother unfairly, I would never treat a person that way. So it's really important that we keep that in our head. And we've all said, don't treat people like a transaction. That's really important, right? Don't treat them like a dollar sign. And Micah, you said it best. Even people that you didn't close with, that you didn't end up having a transaction with, you're still in contact with them. And those individuals saw something in you that they're still sending you referrals. That's what you
Exactly.
build a business on, foundation of just
Yes.
being a real good, decent human being
Yeah.
before anything else. Right?
Sometimes, actually, pretty much most times when I'm dealing with clients, especially home buyers, but
Mm-hmm.
first time home buyers, but I tend to reiterate, even if they think they know what it means to be your agent, right? What it means
Yes.
to be your agent. I explain to them that agency and what it means to be your agent, from my perspective, and truly what it should be is
Mhm.
I represent you. And when I say I represent you, when I'm transacting this deal, I'm doing it on your behalf. I represent who you are and what you want and what your best interests are. I'm standing in your place and I'm doing everything in my power to get what you want because I am you in the transaction.
Right.
So when I explain that to them, that gives them a level of comfort because they know that I'm not doing things for my interest. My interest is your interest.
Right.
Right.
And when I articulate that to them, the level of trust goes beyond anything that because they don't think that I'm advocating for the transaction, or I'm
Mhm.
advocating to get to the closing table, or I'm advocating for my own deal, my company, or anything like that. I try to point out throughout the transaction a way to protect a way for them to get out of the deal to protect the earnest money.
Right.
Whenever something comes up that may not be ideal and we're in this phase where we're negotiating, how can we exit? How can we exit safely? And what is the risk if we don't close? Right? What if you lose your earnest money? What does that look like?
Mhm.
And I mean, I had a client last year where she was under contract for a house and she saw something else, went to an open house and she fell in love. She was losing sleep over it, literally losing sleep, and there was no way out without losing her earnest money. And she called me and she's like, I don't want to lose my earnest money. And I said, I understand you want to lose your earnest money, but you're if you're gonna buy this house, if you're gonna lose sleep over the fact that you're gonna get the other one, you don't need to buy this house. Don't don't lose sleep over $3,000.
Right.
Don't lose sleep over $3,000 and then regret the decision you made, and then you end up just really having that buyer's remorse.
Right.
I
Right.
if ultimately it's about the risk versus reward here, and
Mm.
the reward, which is the house of her dreams, what she really wanted, outweighed the loss in the earnest money. And she understood that. And ultimately, she made that choice and she's happy.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
sometimes you really have to explain to them, look, we don't want to terminate, right? We don't want to have to go through that. But just so you know, if you do that, and if this is something that's really bothering you, then maybe we need to look at that because at this point, you don't want to buy a house that you don't want
Exactly.
and you're not going to be happy to live in.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's pretty much bottom line. That's exactly what we are trying to do. I actually explained it to a client similar to what you just said, Micah, but I used the term, I am your proxy.
Mm.
I am your proxy in this transaction. You tell me what it is you want, and now I'm going to go in to the lion's den
Right.
to get it for you. Like, that is my job.
Yes.
And like you said, it really comes down to a matter of just explaining the process, because sometimes people really just don't understand the process. And once you break it down and you take that time to explain it to them, it
Mhm.
makes them feel so much better. It allows them to have a sense of understanding of what's actually happening, and it allows them to just breathe.
Mhm.
It allows them to breathe, and it makes the transaction a little smoother for them, but of course more smoother for you as the agent. So I am enjoying everything that I've heard here today.
Yes.
This has been, I wasn't
Listen,
expecting this, but
well, I told you he was amazing.
you
I did. I
did.
So God be the glory.
You did.
And
But
so
I mean, it just took a turn that I didn't expect. I didn't see it coming. I didn't see it coming.
But you know what? This is why I always love when we have guests and we prepare questions, but the questions is only for the purpose of laying the foundations.
Right,
But
right.
but when we start, like the questions we had You answered all those things in the very first question. But more importantly, Micah, is I always say our broker asked us to create a word for this year, but I always have a word, right?
Mhm.
But my word was actually 2 words. And my life mantra is to every day be positively impactful in whatever I'm doing and whomever I meet, but to be positively impactful. And so when I met you and I met you again, I was like, positively impactful. And when you speak, it's like, E.F. Hutton, people are like this. Oh my God, what? I mean, you drop nuggets for those of us who may have been in this business, but that is the thing. That is the great thing about being in this company, being with the brokerages being with the brokers that we have, is that there is so much room where we get to grow, where we get to expand, where we get to learn so much, and it's not on the paper. This is what we got to understand. What we learn and what we are gaining is not on the paper. It's the experiences that we learn from one another and that we share and are able to impart into the lives of our clients.
Yes.
So I just want to ask you, Micah, one final question. You've imparted a whole lot of knowledge and nuggets, but one final question. What advice, what wisdom, what would you like to impart upon, what would you leave to our listeners to walk away with today?
I would say that ultimately the most important thing in life is your relationship with God, your relationship with Jesus. That's the biggest thing. And I can only say that my successes and the wisdom that I have been gifted came from him. And every day I wake up and I'm just grateful for that, the fact that I'm alive. Be grateful that you're alive. Be grateful that you have breath in your lungs and that you have an opportunity, to do better every day when you wake up and do something about your situation every day. And that there's hope, there's hope in the moments where you don't see it. But you have to seek that hope, and you have to not allow dark situations and dark and hard things that happen to all of us take control of your mind and influence your mind in a negative way. Find that hope, find that light, and you'll find the success. And success is very subjective. It is ultimately subjective. But in this life, and I think that let joy be the most important thing. Let relationships be something that you focus on, because those things create opportunities. Don't focus on trying to become this big thing. Don't let your expectations hinder you. Sometimes just be open to opportunities. I think that when we create expectations, they become limitations. So don't allow your expectations to cap you off. It's funny because I don't make a lot of goals for my business yearly. I don't. Actually, barely any. And I also think about that in a positive light, how we talked about in the beginning. People get fixated on the problem, but of not having goals, for example. My lack of goals, I think that the lack of goals that I have are actually what allows me to grow beyond anything that I could have put down on paper. So I just leave that open-ended and see where I end up. And then at the end of the day, I'm happy because I know that I'll be taken care of, and I have hope in God to do that. So that helps. That's what
I love it. Expectations. He said expectations can become limitations.
Never heard that before, but listen, we are all writing that down. Wait.
Look, that came out of nowhere. It
didn't. It didn't come out of nowhere.
It came from somewhere. It came from somewhere, and it was needed. It was needed. It was the word
Yes.
of the day.
Michael, we thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes.
And hey, guys, I forgot to say, happy Black History Month. Please make sure
Oh.
that you are celebrating. And that's everybody. It's all of our history, right? Just like we will celebrate everyone else's history as their months come up as well, because that's why we're here, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it is important that we are loving and caring about everyone, regardless of gender, skin color, religious background. I am so happy to have the opportunity to be able to do this every week. So thank you all for joining us. Really appreciate you guys so much. Have an awesome week and make it happen today. It's a Monday. It's Make It Happen Monday.
Make it
Appreciate you
happen,
guys.
Monday. See you next week.